White people aren't having kids, and that's why I'm not investing in white areas. I'm investing in Africa and places where there's actually population growth. Now,
African continent is the future.
You know, I'm seeing all these videos right now where all these farmers are crying about not getting no help right now. You know what? Let me ask you something. When have you ever heard of a black farmer crying about it? Never. And you want to know why? Because they ain't never got no help in the first place. That's right. USDA's literally admitted to discriminating against black farmers. And literally black farmers had to sue, thousands of them, to get what white farmers are handed for free. And fast forward to today, all these farmers crying that they can't get no help. You see, black farmers, they've been struggling. Y'all just now feeling what they've been feeling for over 100 years. Black farmers, they used to own over 19 million acres of land. But guess what? Systematic racism, denied loans, shady politicians, and legal loopholes wiped them all out. Yeah. And now they're 1% of America's farmland. When the government finally tried to pass relief for the black folk back in 2021, white farmers sued to block it, claimed it was reverse discrimination. Make that make sense. So, you know, next time you see folks complaining about farm aid, why don't you ask them, where's the help for the black farmers? Ask them why their struggle is just now important when others have been suffering for centuries.
Wherever you're watching me from, thank you so much for tuning in. Now, God of black people is working in mysterious ways. Right now, I see white people turning on to black people for help. I never thought it would happen, okay? For centuries, we were told something that always black people needed the white system to move forward, okay? We were told without the systems of white supremacy, without their governments, you know, their corporation, their farms, their schools, without the, you know, everything will be nothing. But look around for you today. Look at France, it needs Africa. China needs Africa. Russia needs Africa. A lot of countries right now, they need Africa. They need black people, okay? Africa is now needed by everyone. Why? Because they are seeing power is shifting. They are seeing their empires are crumbling, and the only that will stand is Africa. Now, before I continue with my video, I want you to watch these clips and then we come back.
Leadership now is actually defined more than it's ever been before by partnership. Yeah. In other words, no single country, even the United States, which in this moment in history is blessed with so many resources, can do it alone. We can't solve the problems and challenges that Americans have to face without a partnership, without working collaboratively, without doing it together. Just a quick example, climate change. Yeah. We are, the United States now is the #2 emitter in the world after China. Historically, of course, we've developed our economy in a way that's led to having this effect on the global environment. But even if we do everything right at home in terms of our own transformation, 15% of emissions, we still have to get the other 85%. And that means we have to work in partnership with others. We were talking about technology, the smartphones that so many of us carry in our pockets, the rules, the norms, the standards by which that technology is used. That's not decided by any one country. Yeah. It's decided collaboratively. Yeah. So we have an interest in leadership being partnership more than ever before.
Yeah. And lastly, Africa.
Oh, that's easy. future.
Yes.
Why am I investing in West Africa? Why don't I just stick to Europe? Great question. Let's talk about it. The number one reason that I'm not investing in Europe is that the men and women from Europe are not starting families. I develop and invest in residential properties, and who in Europe is going to be buying or renting my properties in 30 years if nobody has started a family? In 30 years, the population of Ghana, where I do a lot of my investing, is going to double, meaning that the demand for my properties is going to go through the roof. Whereas in Europe, I don't know. Maybe they'll be able to bring in enough immigrants to maintain the population, or maybe they'll get an anti-immigrant party in that prevents the population from growing and leads to a population collapse. These are the uncertainties I don't like as an investor. I'm going to pick one country in Europe to talk about this in more detail, and to be fair to everyone in Europe, I'm going to pick it randomly from a hat. Okay, here we go. Here's the hat. Let's go ahead. Let's pick this all randomly. All right, we're going to be talking about Italy. This was a great coincidence because Italy happens to be the poster child for a great country that's going through a demographic crisis. I love Italian food, the culture, motorcycles, the cars, but the one problem is they're going to be extinct by the end of this century. Just look at the fertility rate for Italian women. If it wasn't for immigration to Italy, the population would be in a free fall today. This wouldn't be a problem for me if I sold handbags or some luxury goods, because not having kids means there's a lot more money to spend on consumerism. But I don't invest in luxury goods. I invest in residential houses. And for my investments to be good long-term, I need population growth. And that's one thing that Italy can't offer me right now, which is causing me so much cognitive dissonance, because when I was growing up, I always thought of Italians as having large families and having these great family values. But it turns out they're not interested in having families at all. So I hope that answers your question as to why I invest in West Africa as opposed to someplace in Europe like Italy. And I hope I didn't offend any of you Italians out there. It was nothing personal, it's just business. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that I'm overlooking investment opportunities that exist in Europe by being so myopically focused on West Africa? Do you think that Europe is going to be able to overcome its demographic crisis and have population growth? Or do you think that AI is going to take over the need for workers, and so none of this matters anyway? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be really interested to hear your thoughts.
Africa has shaped our past. It is shaping the present. It will shape our future. The United States is committed to strengthening genuine partnerships on the continent, to work to solve shared challenges, and also to deliver on the promise and the fundamental aspirations of our peoples. Nigeria, as Africa's largest country, largest economy, largest democracy, is essential to that effort. And we are doing a lot of work together already to drive in a positive direction. We're driving climate action as partners in the Global Methane Coalition. We're pushing for permanent representation for African voices in the UN Security Council, in other international organizations that need to reflect the realities of today, not just the day that they were created many, many years ago. We're working and collaborating to support the development and use of artificial intelligence for good with 30 other Atlantic countries. We're driving blue economic development, environmental protection, science and technology exchange through a new partnership for Atlantic cooperation. Today, as the Foreign Minister mentioned, with President Tinubu, with the Foreign Minister and other colleagues, we spoke about a range of common priorities, including our focus on accelerating economic growth and opportunity here in Nigeria. This is a place of extraordinary innovation, extraordinary dynamism. I've had the opportunity to visit many times over the years. I've seen that each and every time, and I expect to see more of that in Lagos tomorrow. American entrepreneurs, American companies are eager to partner with and invest in Nigeria's economy, particularly in the tech sector.
Well, these are all underground covert operations. Why does Africa need them? Why do we need them? Africa has been the provider. If you look at Europe, Europe cannot survive without Africa. One situation that people don't realize, post-World War, when the US came up with the Marshall Plan, what they don't tell you is that the contribution through exploitation of African minerals was actually the biggest funder of the European Recovery Plan, ERP, aka the Marshall Plan. US contributed $13 billion, which is now present day $175 billion, which, by the way, the American taxpayer must be paid back. Nobody's asking for that money back. But what they don't tell you is that Africa, through exploitation of its resources by the Europeans was actually a much, much bigger contribution to the European recovery post-World War II. Nobody talks about that. Why does such a continent that did so much to help Europe recover continue to be so poor? Let's be realistic here. Let's not talk about peanuts. Africa does not need the aid. What we need is for those who are exploiting Africa to stop. Africa has everything it needs. If Africa could have contributed as much as it did to the recovery of Europe post-World War II, why wasn't Africa equally developed?
Do that white people need us to survive?
Hell yeah, without melanin, they can't survive. Matter of fact, if you look at the statistics, white people are dying right now. They are dying more than they're repopulating. And that's why so many black people are coming up missing. Notice they're getting all of these different type of melanin shots inside of them. They're trying to deal with the sun more. Right now, with all of these heat rays and how the sun is heating up and all of the ultraviolet infrared rays is coming from the sun, man, white people are dying globally from skin cancer. The sun is beating they ass. I mean, literally especially in Israel. Look up the sun cancer epidemic in Israel. Man, the sun is whooping they ass.
They know that.
But they need melanin. For the sun can charge them and make them supernatural like it does us. We are supernatural people. We are an eternal people. We really is.
France is now ungovernable. You better believe it. France is now ungovernable. The country that actually made its money from bleeding black people. The country that forced Haiti to pay 150 billion for their freedom. And one of the reasons why Haiti is still in the situation it is right now is because of France. France, the country that bled Africa, making sure that the countries that it colonized basically had to pay a colonial tax for being colonized. That country, you know, the country that one of the biggest slave traders in the world, that country has run out of money. They cannot afford to pay the pensions. They cannot afford the healthcare system. Literally, France is literally on the verge of economic collapse. And this is serious. France is in worse trouble than Greece was, except at the time the European Union was so powerful at the time. But now the European Union was weakened by Brexit. The European Union has been weakened by Trump turning against them. So now the European Union, they're just running around like headless chickens. They cannot even bail France out. France is literally on the verge of collapse. And coming close after France is going to be the UK and Germany.
Yo, France is getting ready to collapse, and nobody's talking about this. And this is not me just fear-mongering. No, look. Fears of French collapse, sound the alarms. French stock slides as Paris government faces risk of collapse. Timestamp there. France may need an International Monetary Fund bailout. Reuters, French stocks, bonds tumble as government faces potential collapse. Market Watch talking about the collapse. So what exactly went wrong in France and what's going to happen next? We can see that the public debt hovers around 3.3 trillion euros, which is around 113% gross domestic product, which is the highest in recent history. The budget deficit also remains stubbornly high, projected at 5.4% of GDP in 2025, with warning signs of persistent weak fiscal discipline pushing it closer to 6% without significant intervention. Now, keep in mind, their goal for their budget deficit is 3%. They're double that, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get down to that 3% anytime soon. So they need an influx of cash desperately, and they may have to turn to the International Monetary Fund to help bail them out. Because once news got out about how bad it really is financially in France, investors immediately started selling off in the stock market and selling their bonds off too. Now, it's important to note that France is the second biggest economy in the European Union. So the fact that they're collapsing means this is going to send shockwaves through the entire European Union. So France really has to do something fast because this is not good for the EU at all. So what options does France really have right now? The first and most important thing that they absolutely have to do is create their own version of what the United States created in Doge. They've already stated that they're spending way too much money and they need to cut back on that wasteful spending. So creating a version of Doge will help cut in to that debt to GDP ratio that's been devastating for them. Next, and as sad as this may be, they may have to take this bailout from the IMF. Obviously, it's not ideal, but in order to keep the country going, you may have to do something like this, but time will tell if they actually do. The last thing they have to do is a confidence vote. Since all of this is happening, they have to decide if the current leader in France is fit to actually lead the country out of the current situation it's in. If the rest of the countries in the EU decide, no, he's not fit for the bill, he's going to get voted out, and they're going to put somebody new in that can help with this problem. So France is on the risk of collapse, and it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with all of this.
Apparently, former economic minister Thierry Breton is mad. Big mad at President Macron. He said, quote, "It's the imbecility of Emmanuel Macron that opened the eyes of Africans. One thing is sure, if France loses its colonies, our children and grandchildren will go to Africa to search for their livelihoods. Immigration will change direction. Macron needs to go." End quote. That is what former economic minister said about Macron. I must admit, it's interesting to watch them go after one another. But as you know, President Macron is not a lot of people's cup of tea. One of the reasons, as this guy mentioned, is because of how much he has opened Africans' eyes. And former colonies, they have most of them have woken up, and that is making them shake in their boots because they know what's coming in the near future. When our eyes are open and when we say enough is enough, everything is going to change, and they know it. What are your thoughts about what the former economic minister said about Macron and Africans opening our eyes?
Welcome back. Now, let me start with Africa before I go to Black Americans and Black people around the world. Right now, all of these countries, they need African resources, they need African markets, they need African people, they need African stability. But the real question is, why are the white nations, why are the white people suddenly, they cannot survive without Africa? Why? Number one, the shift of power. For a lot of years, white nations position themselves as the center of the world. For example, Europe, America, Australia, they branded themselves as advanced, wealthy, civilized, and powerful. But history always turns. Every empire fails, and today the Western world is collapsing under its own weight. Economies are falling, currencies are weakening. Birth rates are declining, industries are shrinking. But meanwhile, Africa is rising. That's the beauty. Africa is young, rich in resources. Africa is claiming its voice on the global stage. And for the first time in modern history, white nations are realizing that they cannot dictate terms like before. They can't do that. They need Africa. They need Africa. When we look at Africa resources, 30% of the world mineral reserves comes from Africa. 40% of the world's gold come from Africa. Over 90% of the world platinum and chromium comes from Africa. Coltan, cobalt, and rare earth, critical for smartphones, laptops, electric cars, and military technology, comes from Africa. So without Africa, the modern digital ages collapse. Every phone in West Africa pocket, every electric cars rolling in Europe, every satellite America launches, it is powered by Africa, and they know it. And now the West no longer controls those resources the way they used to. African nations are now nationalizing, it's called what? Nationalizing mines, renegotiating contracts, okay? And even kicking out Western cooperation. So white nations are panicking because they can't compete with Africa. They can't. Africa are now having new partnership like China, Russia, BRICS, and even with Africa itself. Western nations right now are also running into another crisis. It's called food climate change. Food, climate change, war, and failing soil have damaged Western agriculture. Farmers in America and Europe are struggling, yet Africa has 60% of the world uncultivated land. That means that the future of global food security lies in Africa. Now, let's talk about population collapse. Europe and America are shrinking, going into extinction. Birth rates are at historical lows. Countries like Italy, Spain, Germany, and even the United States are facing population decline. They are aging societies with fewer workers, fewer young people, and no way to sustain their economy. So they need black people. They need Africans. Africa, we have the youngest population on earth. And by 2050, 1 out of every 4 people in the world will be African. That means what? That means Africa is not just the past. Africa, it is the future. And white nations knows that without Africa labor, Africa innovation, and Africa market, their economies will crumble. How? And that's why they push immigration policies, why they seek African students, why they try to lure African talent. Japan lately say they are creating African cities, They are desperate to tap into African youth. That's what I think. Now, when you talk about what is happening in Black American, for example, what's happening in America, let me talk about for example, white farmers. In America, the white farmers were once the backbone of the American identity. And think about the cowboy movies, the country music, the national pride. The farmer was always portrayed as strong, independent, self-sufficient, and feeding the nation. But look closer today. The image is shattered. And these farmers are no longer independent. They are completely dependent to government bailouts, subsidies, and international markets. Without government checks, most will collapse tomorrow. Now, let's pause for a moment. Do you see the irony here? For a number of years, they accused black communities of being dependent on welfare. They mocked black farmers. They criminalized black farmers. They said they lived off handouts. But who is living off handouts right now? You get that? It's white farmers. They are drowning in government checks. They are begging Washington to save them. And this is why I say this. God of black people is working in mysterious ways. Those who mocked black people, those who mocked Africa, they are needing help. They are the ones who are crying for help now. And it doesn't stop here, because in many rural areas, white farmers cannot even find workers to pick their crops. Their own children don't want to do it. So what do they turn to? Immigrants, migrant workers, black labor. So the very people they demonized are the ones keeping their farms alive. Without us, without black people, without immigrants, without our labor, their food rots in the fields. Yes, it rots in the field. That's reality, and they know it. So let's be clear here. The farmer of today is not independent. The farmer of today is dependent on black people, on brown people, on government. So the image of rugged white self-reliance is gone, and that is divine reversal. Now, to South Africa, for centuries, white Afrikaners farmers controlled the best land, okay? They used apartheid to push black people into the worst areas, the dry lands, the labor camps, and they call themselves the bread basket of Africa. But look now, the land question is back on the table, and black South Africans are rising and saying that, this is our inheritance. This our ancestral died for this land. We will not live as slaves on soil that is ours. And white farmers are panicking. Some of them are fleeing to America. You saw white people going to America, trying to claim refugee status. Others are begging their government for protections. Some are even trying to ally with black communities they once ignored just to survive. So this is not just politics, it is prophecy. For centuries, they thought the land was theirs forever. But the God of black people said, no. The land belongs to the children of Africa. It will not be stolen forever. I will return it to mysterious ways. So the proud and humble, the landowners became wanderers. The exploiters become beggars. That's how the table is turning. We never knew a day like this will come. We'll never. White people are turning to black people for help. Let's look at MAGA supporters. The MAGA movement thrives on fear. That's reality, fear of change, fear of diversity, fear of losing power. Oh, they chant, make America great again, make America great again. But what do they really mean is, make America white again, okay? But here's the contradiction, huh? They know they cannot win election without black people. They know demographics are shifting. The US Census tells them by 2040, white people will be no longer the majority. Now, that same movement that demonized black people is now trying to recruit black people. They are rolling out black MAGA influencers. They are inviting rappers to the White House. You see, yeah? They take photos with black pastors. They promise opportunities, zones, and urban investment. But let's call it what it is: desperation. Because MAGA is collapsing under its own hypocrisy. On one hand, they scream about immigrants taking jobs. On the other hand, they rely on immigrants and black labor to keep farms, to keep factories and services running. Okay? On one hand, they scream about law and order. On the other hand, their own communities are drowning in drugs and poverty. On one hand, they call us lazy. They call black people, black American lazy. On the other hand, they are begging for black voters, black votes to keep them in power. That is not strength. It is weakness. Okay? That is a dying, systematic or system clenching at straws. The corporation in US, in these white nations, are in panic mode. Why? Because for decades, corporation want the image of black people, but not the power. They wanted black people on billboards and not on the boardrooms. They wanted black people on stage and not in strategy meeting. They wanted the culture of black people, but not their control. But guess this, black people have woken up. They are no longer satisfied with representation. Right now, we want ownership. We want equity. We want freedom. That's what black people want. And so, black workers are waking up and they're walking away. They are quitting jobs that they don't value them. They are starting businesses. They are investing in Africa. They are saying no more tokens. They are saying no more fake diversity. And corporations are panicking. Because when black talent leaves, innovation leaves, creativity leaves, on the T-City lives, okay? And consumers too lives. So who love black culture notice it immediately. Let's not forget about it is the most profitable music in the world is hip-hop. The most influenced fashion trends comes from black culture. The most dominant athletes are black, even in tech. Some are the brightest innovators are black. Without black people, corporations collapses. And that's why you see companies now begging for black talents, bring bonuses, diversity initiative, mentorship. But don't be fooled, man. They don't love you. They don't. Okay? They don't love you. They need you, but they don't love you. There's a difference. There's a very, very big difference. And this pattern we see is not new. When you look back through history, you will see the same story repeated. Who did the world look for wisdom? It was Africa. When Europe was in the dark ages, who preserved knowledge? Who preserved science and medicine? It was Africa, man. And moves. When America built its economy, whose labor made it possible? Black slaves. So every time the world has come to black people in times of crisis, each and every time, not even white only, even Latinos, even Asians, everyone, they come to black people in the time of crisis. They took our knowledge, our labor, creativity, our spirit, and they built empires. And when they thought they no longer need us, they threw us aside. But God is not mocked. Over time, those empires collapsed. Rome fell, colonial Britain fell, apartheid fell, and today America is falling. Why? Because no empire built on the black labor or no empire built on the back of the oppressed can last forever. When you see white people turning back, when you see white people turning to black people, it is not the first time. But this time, we must not let history repeat itself. The time or this time as black people, as African, we must not let them take without giving. This time, we must demand justice. I will not, finish when I have not talked about cultural leverages. About culture, why white people are turning to black people mostly is because of culture. Culture is power, and culture today is black. When you look at their youths, the white Gen Zs in America, in Europe, even in Asia, all are dressing in African or black culture. They dress like black people, they talk like black people, they are rapping like black people, dancing like black people. They imitate black TikTok creators, black athletes, black influencers, because black culture is the culture of the future. And white corporations know it. And that's why they black people. That's why they need our approval, okay? Without black culture, their brands are irrelevant. Without black cool, they are invisible. So this is what I call leverage. This is power, okay? But you know what? We as black people, we must use it wisely. We must stop giving culture away for free. We must turn it into ownership, into business, into wealth of our communities, okay? Because if we keep giving away for free, they will use it against us. That's reality. That's reality. And all of this, what is happening, farmers begging, MAGA desperate, asking Africa for help, cooperation panicking, culture shifting, it is part of one big prophetic reversal. The Bible says, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. As African and black people, we are cornerstone of the future. They rejected us for centuries. They said we are nothing, but right now they cannot survive without us. And this is divine reversal. It is prophetic unfolding. And so I say again, God of black people is working in mysterious ways. He's humbling the proud, lifting the oppressed, he's flipping the script in ways no one saw it coming. You get me? What is coming next? That question is, we need to ask, what will come next? Will we give away our power again as black people? Will we save their collapsing system, or will we set demand justice and build our own? We need to know, because this is our moment. It's our time. The world is shifting in our favor and we must not miss it. Okay? We must build businesses, school, banks, farms, tech, companies. We must unite across Africa, American, Caribbean, and Europe. And we must say, if you want us, you must respect us. If you need us, you must pay us. If you seek us, you must honor us. Okay? Because we are no longer beggars. We are no longer slaves. We are no longer powerless. Okay? We are chosen. And we are rising, and we will not be stopped as black people. You get me? Now, thank you for watching this. The power is shifting. They are turning there. You know, they want Africa for help. They do everything. The help from black people, because we are the first people and the last people. Tell me what you think on the comment section. Until next episode, peace out.